الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. We will continue with our explanation of Surah Ikhlas. So I spoke about the concept of قل هو الله أحد, and then I spoke about اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانا أربابا من دون الله, and then that led to the discussion of a Mathab. So today we're continuing our discussion on a Mathab. Just one thing I want to say before I begin. Generally I do finish before 1:45, but I might go slightly over time because of two reasons. Number one, I've been informed that I speak a bit too fast for people to follow. And number two, I want to complete this entire lesson by the end of this session so that I don't have to continue on to next session. So got something else to do. So anyway, so the way that this lesson is going to go is a continuation of last week's lesson, which dealt with the concept of a madhab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with it in the manner of question answer. So one of the questions is, number one, why are there differences between the different madhahib? We all follow one religion, right? Question number two, why not just follow Qur'an Sunnah? Why do we need a madhab? Or why not follow the Salaf al-Salihin? Why are there no females in fiqh? There are four madhabs. The fountainhead of all four madhahib are male. Why don't we then have females in fiqh? The next question is, what happens when you have a supposed or a seeming contradiction between hadith or any text, hadith or Quran, and a madhab? So anyway, I will deal with the question of why not follow Quran and Sunnah and why not follow Salaf al-Salihin as one question. So number one, why not follow Quran Sunnah? So essentially, if you go back to the previous lesson, I spoke about the development of a madhab. So you will find that the madhab does not contradict Qur'an Sunnah in any way. The Prophet ﷺ, as I explained, the Prophet ﷺ came with wahi. The Prophet ﷺ explained to us the Qur'an. We have hadith, Qur'an, and then that eventually over the time developed into a madhab, right? Another issue which is also important, so the issue is why they not just take straight from Qur'an Sunnah? Why do we need these scholars of a madhab, right? So number one, I think it's imperative to understand that you can't just look at something in isolation. Sometimes someone says, oh, there's the ayah of the Quran, right? Sometimes you find that there are extra information elsewhere that helps to explain that particular ayah. For example, I can say that you shouldn't make salah. For argument's sake, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but they say, make the argument you shouldn't make salah. Then I say, yes, but it's in Qur'an Sunnah. And I can justify that from Qur'an Sunnah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqrabu as-salah. Or you believe, do not go near salah. You can ask any hafidh, he will tell you that's most certainly in the Quran. La taqrabu as-salah. Do not go near to salah, right? So is that not in? So how do you understand that? If you read the ayah further on, you will find Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la taqrabu as-salah wa antum sukara, while you are in a state of intoxication, right? So now you will say, but doesn't that ayah then say that you can drink, but you just don't have to go to salah while you're drinking, right? So then another ayah in the Quran clarifies, or actually not necessarily clarifies, but another ayah in the Quran is the ayah that is used to indicate the complete and total prohibition of intoxicants. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسِرُ وَالْأَنصَارُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ رِجْسٌ مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ unambiguously and irrefutably tells us that intoxicants is completely prohibited. I'll give you another example. I can quote you a hadith, right, which speaks about how the Prophet ﷺ made two rak'ats of salah, right? So all of the madhabs is 4 rak'ats for dhuhr, 4 rak'ats for asr. So I can quote you a hadith which says, okay, the 2 rak'ats was made. But if you look at the context, if you have an understanding of all the information of the hadith, of the Quran in its entirety, then you will realize that that particular hadith speaks about a very particular circumstance, and the different madahib do agree that under certain circumstances, for example, when you are traveling, you are allowed to shorten your prayer. Another example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ. When we said to the angels, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ, prostrate to Adam, فَسَجَدُوا, they all prostrated, إِلَّا إِبْلِيس, except Iblis, right? So when you look at that ayah, it leads to the understanding that Iblis is from amongst the angels. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clarifies that later on when He says, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ, that Iblis was from amongst the jinn kind. Right? And this is very similar from amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Abu Musa radiallahu anhu was asked a particular fatwa concerning inheritance. So he gave his answer regarding this particular fatwa. Then he told the individual who asked him, go to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, and he will clarify this fatwa for me. So the individual goes to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, and then he says, no, this fatwa that Abu Musa radiallahu anhu gave was actually incorrect, and this is the correct ruling regarding inheritance. So the guy goes back radiallahu anhu to the guy goes back to Abu Musa radiallahu anhu, and he says, this is what Ibn Mas'ud said. Then Abu Musa radiallahu anhu says, his response is that as long as this learned scholar is within our presence, then don't ask me regarding this, right? And it's reported that from amongst the Sahaba there was a handful of jurists, a handful of scholars from whom ruling was taken. Amongst them is Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Zayd ibn Thabit, Aisha bint Abi Bakr. Who else is there? Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and Abdullah ibn Umar. Dr. Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Buti rahimahullah says that it is established, is accepted by consensus that not every single ruling that the Sahaba gave was always asked for what is the justification from Quran and the prophetic tradition for this. Also, another issue we have to understand as to why we cannot just simply take from Qur'an Sunnah is, as I said, you have to have a very deep knowledge of Quran and the prophetic tradition. And it's honestly, it's conceited to believe that we are on that level where we can directly derive rulings from the Qur'an Sunnah. If we look at some of the greatest exegetes of the Quran, the greatest explainers of the Quran, right, the commentators, the likes of Al-Qurtubi, who was Maliki, Baydawi, who was Shafi'i, Suyuti, Shafi'i, Ibn Kathir, Shafi'i, Fakhruddin al-Razi, Shafi'i. I mean, this is the creme de la creme of Quranic exegetes. I mean, these are the established classical exegetes of Quran, and they were all followers of a particular madhab. Right? Another issue when you look at a madhab has a depth of scholarship backing it, right? So if one particular scholar comes along and he says, even if he is on a very high level, and he says, okay, based on my understanding of Quran and Sunnah, this is the ruling, right? That is fundamentally different to following a madhab, because when you look at a madhab, it has a corpus of scholarship behind it. So take an individual like Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah. Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah pitches up on the scene about the 7th century, right? So the Shafi'i madhab had developed for about 5 centuries, and Imam al-Nawawi becomes an expert in the Shafi'i madhab, right? He looks at these 5 centuries of Islamic scholarship, which includes the like of al-Muzani, etc. He looks at these 5 centuries of Islamic scholarship. He becomes an expert in the science of Shafi'i jurisprudence, amongst others, and then he writes his Minhaj, right? And then upon the work of Imam al-Nawawi, you find great scholars like Al-Ramli, right, of Ibn Hajar, who in turn write works on the works of al-Nawawi. So that is the sort of backing that one particular madhab has. So you find that a madhab develops over years via scholars, and then works are written, right? And then commentaries are written on the commentary, and then critiques are written on the commentary of the critique, and then commentaries are written on the commentaries of the commentaries, right? So sometimes you find ulama, they specialize in looking at where one scholar in a particular madhab differed from another scholar, and which is a preferred opinion within that particular madhab, right? So the difference of opinion are not just between madhab, difference of opinion are within madhab, within one particular madhab, but as I say, certain has come to the fore. In the very same way, when you look at a madhab, why are there 4 madhahib? It's because these 4 madhahib have stood the test of time. So in question number 3. So why are they different madhahib? Don't we all follow Qur'an Sunnah? Why then are they different madhahib? So what we have to understand when it comes to differences of opinion amongst the madhahib, certain things are, number one, authentic and unambiguous, right? And everyone accepts that. In fact, the definition of kufr is that you reject something which is irrefutably authentic, unambiguous, and known with certainty. If someone rejects that, they have rejected the religion of Islam, right? So issues of, when it comes to issues of madhahib, issues within the madhahib, differences of opinion, these are issues wherein there is a certain amount of ambiguity, there is room for differences of interpretation. Right. Let me give you an example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. Right? This is referring to the waiting period of a divorced woman. And the Quran says it's 3 cycles. Right? 3 menstrual cycles. Now what does this mean, 3 menstrual cycles? Does it refer to the clean cycle, or does it refer to the cycle where bleeding occurs? Right? So different scholars have difference of opinion. So Abu Hanifa says that it is the clean cycle. Imam Shafi'i, Malik, etc. says that it is the cycle of bleeding, and they have their own justifications for this. But the word quru allows itself to be interpreted in 2 or 3 different, in more than one way. And this was established and tacitly approved of by our beloved Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. I'll give you one example. There's a situation where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam dispatches an army to Banu Qurayza. Right? Now Banu Qurayza is a Jewish tribe outside of central Medina. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam dispatches the army to Banu Qurayza, and then he says, لا يصلين أحدكم العصر إلا في بني قريظة, that none of you shall perform Asr except that it be at Banu Qurayza. So what does this mean? That none of you should perform Asr except that it be at Banu Qurayza. It could be, so let me give you an example. Let's say I say, hurry, make quick, so that you can get to Cape Town in time for Asr. You must not make Asr except that it be in Cape Town, right? So what does that mean? Does that mean you take that literally and say, I must drive, even if Asr time comes in, I must drive until I get to Cape Town, then make Asr? Or does it mean I should hurry in such a way that I can try and get to Cape Town in time for Asr? Can I learn no recordings? In time for Asr, right? So when the Sahaba, when they were on the way to Banu Qurayza, part of the group of Sahaba understood that the Prophet ﷺ meant it literally. You should not make Salatul Asr except that it be on the location of Banu Qurayza. The other group understood it to mean that, look, إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. The salah is at established time, but the Prophet ﷺ meant that we should hurry in such a way that we can make it to Banu Qurayza for Salatul Asr. And if Salatul Asr happens to be on the way, then we make Salatul Asr there. So one group says, okay, we're going to make Salatul Asr here. On the way, the other group says, no, we're going to reach Banu Qurayza, then make Salatul Asr. So the Prophet ﷺ hears about this. So what is the correct opinion? Well, they're supposed to make Salatul Asr on the way, or they're supposed to actually wait until they reach Banu Qurayza and then make Salatul Asr. So Prophet ﷺ hears about this, and he said, and he doesn't scold, or he doesn't repudiate either of the 2 groups. He's fine with both groups of Sahaba, right? So one thing we learn from this is that there is a degree of ambiguity in the Quran and in the Sunnah of our beloved Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, right? And number 2, we also find that the Prophet ﷺ never had an issue with this. And number 3, it never ever led to conflict, right? Obviously later on it did lead to conflict, but the conflict was sorted out in the time of the conflict did not get out of hand in the time of the beloved Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, right? So an interesting issue that comes about is to which extent is difference of opinion allowed, right? How much difference of opinion can you have? The difference of opinion has to be within the realms of the text as understood by scholars of that particular text. For example, in the Shafi'i Mathab, you can wipe part of your head when you can just go so, and then your wudu is valid, right? The Hanafis, Malikis, Hanbalis, they don't accept that, right? They don't accept just, wiping a few hairs. The Shafi'i says you wipe a few hairs, that's fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. All the Quran says wipe your head, that's it. So whether you say a few hairs, whether you say the entire head, whether you say quarter of the head, third of the head, all of that, whether you say quarter of the head, the entire head, all of that is within the realm of the understanding of فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُم. Right? So, if someone comes with some convoluted argument, right, that is not in line with text, then that will not be accepted. For example, if someone quotes the ayah I mentioned earlier regarding intoxicants, right, that won't be accepted because there's an ayah somewhere else in the Quran which clarifies, or could actually be considered to be abrogating the previous ayah of the Quran. Right? So if someone, for example, comes along and says, look, the reason why males and females are separated in the masjid is because it can be a form of temptation, right? So if a gay guy comes into the masjid and the guys all go in the ruku, he's going to be tempted by the guys. So what you should do is, you should put the gay guy in front. Now that has got no basis within Quran prophetic tradition. You can't come up with that type of interpretation, because that type of interpretation of our laws has got absolutely no basis within Quran and prophetic tradition. Question number 4. What happens when you have a distinction or a contradiction between hadith and a madhab? So firstly, this is a scholarly discussion. So I'm not going to go into depth regarding this issue because I'm not a scholar and I don't think anyone here is either. But just to give you a brief overview of the distinction between what happens if you have a contradiction between hadith and madhab, because that is an issue that comes up quite often, right? Someone says, okay, my madhab says this and I read a hadith which says this, now what do I do? Right? I explained initially you have to look at the context. So number one, firstly, understand who we are dealing with, right? Let's take the Shafi'i madhab again. Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah was one of the greatest experts on hadith. He was a Shafi'i. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani was one of the greatest experts on hadith. He was a Shafi'i. Even contemporary scholars, contemporary hadith masters, the like of Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Bani, right, rahimahullah, accepts these types of issues, that these are the experts on hadith. So when we are speaking about when we are speaking about a contradiction between hadith and madhab, rest assured that the masters of hadith interpretation have also looked at those hadith, and they also came to the conclusion that they should still remain as followers of the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. So if you feel that you know better than a Nawawi, if you feel that you know better than Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, then I'm not quite sure my advice is going to help in any way whatsoever. In fact, I've even come across ulama who have tried to make the argument that Muslim, Bukhari, and Tirmidhi were also Shafi'is. How true that is, Allahu A'lam. However, Imam Tirmidhi and Muslim were students of Imam al-Bukhari. Imam Bukhari took as a confidant and as a mentor two individuals. One was Ishaq ibn Rahawayh and another was Ahmad ibn Hanbal, both of whom were students of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, who in turn was a student of Malik. He was also a student of Muhammad Hassan al-Shaybani, who in turn was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. So that's the first issue. Understand, when we speak about contradiction between hadith and madhab, understand who we are dealing with here, right? We're not dealing with any ordinary guy. We're dealing with the dons, with the creme de la creme of hadith masters, right? Number two, check that you understand that check to ensure that you actually understand the madhab correctly. Sometimes a person comes with a hadith and says, look here, my madhab says this. But meanwhile, the madhab doesn't actually say that. I'll give you a typical example. If a dog licks you, what do you do? How do you purify yourself? Many people will tell you, you take a ghusl, right? You take a ghusl. If the dog licks you, you take a ghusl, right? According to the Shafi'i madhab, how do you purify yourself if a dog licks you? Does anyone know? How do you purify yourself if a dog licks you? You wash that area 7 times, one of which is with clean earth, right? The Hanafis are a bit more lenient. They say you just need to wash the area. The Malikis are even more lenient. The Salafis, on the other hand, Allahu Alam, what their opinion is on the issue. But as far as I know, none of them say that you need to take al-ghusl if the dog licks you. Right? So sometimes someone comes along and says, see, that's what my Mathab says. But meanwhile, the Mathab doesn't actually say that. That is your culture. That is Titi Quranta's Mathab. That's not the Shafi'i Mathab. So it's important that you understand, are we following a particular established Mathab, or are we following Titi Quranta? Number two, the issue of Sahih Hadith. When you take a Hadith, is a Hadith Sahih, right? Now another issue you have to understand when we look at Sahih, Da'if, Hasan, etc. These are merely gradings of a particular Hadith. Sometimes the guy says, look, that's what the Madhab says this Hadith is, and the Hadith is Sahih, it's authentic. Now, it's very important to understand when you use these types of translations. This is a religious jargon, and then we are translating it and expect to have a thorough understanding of what it actually means. So when you say a hadith is sahih, or a hadith is hasan, or it's da'if, it's merely a grading of a particular hadith, and based on the context, that grade means something, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say you're at university and you get 50%, right? Is that a pass or not? That's a pass, right? Getting 50%. But let's say you want to get into honors, right? 50% might not necessarily be enough. Or let's say you're doing honors and you want to get into masters. Then 50% might not be enough. You might need 60, 65, 70%, right? Or let's say you finish high school, right? And you get 80%. That means you've done well, got a distinction, but it might not necessarily be good enough for you to enter into medicine. So similarly with hadith terminology, when someone says hadith is sahih, it simply means, it's like saying, no, that's an A-grade hadith. That's all it means. That is being given a grading, and the grading of the hadith is sahih. If someone says a hadith is da'if, it's simply being given a grading, and the grading is da'if. In the same way, 50% might not necessarily get you into university, but it's still a pass. So when someone says a hadith is da'if, it's still a hadith, but the grading of that hadith is da'if. If a hadith is da'if, doesn't mean the hadith is rejected. There are still purposes for which that hadith can be used, right? In the same way, when you look at a hasan or sahih hadith, it simply means it's a particular grading, which means that hadith is used in a particular way. So that's the next issue. Then you also have to look at issues such as context, right? Such as am, khas, nasikh, al-mansukh, etc., right? Because some hadith are very general and it's specified elsewhere. Some hadiths are for a very specific situation, like this, right? Whereas there are other general rulings. So it's very important that we do not simply take a hadith outside of context, right? So if you can understand the difference between am and khas and nasikh and mansukh and all those other related issues when it comes to hadith, then again, it's pointless me speaking on, because then you obviously are an expert in hadith and you will know how to deal with changes in madhahib. Okay, number two, the second part of that question, madhab and hadith, right? So, can we potentially skip between madhahib, right? Can we just skip between madhahib? Can we just take, let's say I'm a Shafi'i, can I just take the Hanafi opinion, or just take the Maliki opinion, or just take the Hanbali opinion, or any opinion that I want to take? Can we just swap between madhab? Look, now from a theological perspective, right, we accept that all madhab are accepted, we accept that all madhab are valid. Whether it's the Maliki madhab, whether it's the Shafi'i madhab, whether it's the Hanbali madhab, or the Hanafi madhab, right? And there are times in which you can swap between madhahib. Number one is if you are a scholar and you believe the other individual's opinion, or the other madhab's opinion is much stronger, you can take it as a result of precaution. Another reason is you can change between madhab as a result of dispensation, right? So a typical example is when you go on Umrah, right? Or you go on Hajj and you're making tawaf around the Kaaba. When you circumambulate in the Kaaba, you come into contact with people of the opposite sex. So if you're going to stick to the Shafi'i madhab, you're not going to make a tawaf around that Kaaba. So the scholars say, look, you can take a dispensation of the Hanafi or Maliki madhab, right? However, I think it's important that you don't just swap between madahib. And the reason why you don't just simply swap between madahib without scholarly input, because there's the potential that you can be swapping between madahib and your action could be not accepted based on all of the madahib. Let me give you an example, right? So you make wudu, right, which is valid, minimally valid according to the Shafi'i madhab. So you just, wipe a few of your hairs, and then you go downstairs and you mistakenly touch someone of the opposite sex. Now, according to the Shafi'i madhab, your wudu is invalid, right? However, according to the Hanafi madhab, your wudu might not necessarily break. So you come up and then you make salah. Now that salah will not be accepted because you don't have wudu. According to the Shafi'i madhab, you don't have wudu because you broke it by touching someone of the opposite sex. According to the Hanafi madhab, you don't have wudu because you only wiped your hair minimally. Because according to the Hanafi madhab, you can't just wipe a few hairs. So that's why you don't just swap between madhab, because you might eventually end up with a situation where your action based on the composite views of all of the different madhab are not acceptable, right? Did everyone understand that? Very similar situation. The Maliks are very similar actually. One of the conditions for wudu to be accepted according to the Malik is that you have to rub the water in, which is not a condition for the acceptance of wudu for the Shafi'i madhab. So you might say, okay, I went and touched someone of the opposite sex. According to the Maliki madhab, it doesn't necessarily break my wudu, so I come and I make salah. According to the Maliki madhab, your wudu is not accepted because you only wiped after the head and you didn't wipe the water in. Whereas according to the Shafi'i madhab, your wudu would also not be accepted, therefore your salah would be rejected. Right? Similar example you can use if you take wudu according to the Shafi'i madhab and you come and then you don't read Surah Fatiha in the salah where you are required, because according to the Hanafis you don't necessarily need to read that Surah Al-Fatiha after the Imam. So according to the Hanafi madhab, your salah would be valid, but your wudu would be invalid. According to the Shafi'i madhab, your salah would also be invalid because your wudu would be invalid. So if you are a scholar of that level, of that magnitude, where you can understand the difference between all four madhahib, you know what the Maliki says, you know what the Hanbali say, you know what the Shafi'i say, you know what the Hanafi say, and you're an expert in all four madhahib, and then, I mean, you're not going to take my opinion on this issue anyways. Not that I have one, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to listen to what I say. Also when you look at the difference between hadith, up until today, there are ulama, there are scholars who write works of fiqh which deal with the issue of basing it on the prophetic traditions. One example, a common, I think it was published in 1979, Fiqh al-Manaji is relatively not a very advanced text. I mean, it's not general text though, it's not really advanced. I haven't done the text personally, where they do deal with issues of basing the view of the madhab on the prophetic tradition. I think this is going to be the last question, inshallah. Why are there no females in a madhab? Right. So I think this is important to deal with. Why are there no females in a particular madhab? Number one, yes, let's acknowledge that there are less female scholars than male scholars. However, when I spoke about the concept of a madhab, I spoke about how a madhab develops. It's not just Imam Shafi'i or our Imam Abu Hanifa or our Imam Malik, right? Or just looks at the Qur'an or just sucks stuff out of his stomach and says, this is the madhab. The madhab develops based on as a result of numerous scholars. And if you look at the scholarship within the madhab, you do indeed find that there are many females. One of the teachers of Imam Shafi'i, in fact, was a female. One of the teachers of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, rahimahullah, was a female. Also, Imam Malik's daughter would correct students. She obviously was a female. Some of the greatest universities, the like of Qarawiyin, which according to UNESCO is the oldest degree-given university in the world, was established by Fatima al-Fihri, who was a female. The first madrasa in South Africa the resources was put up by Begum Sawlat, who was also a female. I remember whilst I was, before I came to university, after school, I remember a scholar came to us, a guy by the name of Muhammad Akram Nadwi. Now Muhammad Akram Nadwi, he wrote quite an interesting book. He wrote a book called Al-Muhaddithat. Now Al-Muhaddithat documents the contribution of female scholars to the science of hadith. And essentially all it does is it just documents those scholars. This is a scholar, for example, Fatima bint al-Munajjah, Zainab bint al-Kamal, etc., etc., etc. And he ended up with this compendium of scholars, of female scholars who contributed to the science of hadith, and he ended up with 40 volumes and 8,000 entries. All of them obviously females who just contributed to the science of hadith. So I think when we say that why are there no female scholars that have contributed to the development of our tradition, I think it's you don't know our tradition. You say that there are no females who have contributed to our tradition. Also, many people claim that this is an act of patriarchy, an act of misogyny, that the Mathab are all male dominated, and therefore it's bound to have patriarchal, misogynistic interpretations. Let's take something like the covering of the head. Let's take the scarf, for example, right? I explained how a Mathab develops. Obviously it develops by scholars, and if you go back, you'll find that the interpretation of those hadith, the interpretation of those hadith were by the Sahaba, and many of those Sahaba also got the hadith directly from our beloved Messenger ﷺ. So you take the example of hijab. Who was it that relates to us the concept and the understanding of hijab? It's Aisha radiallahu anha. So when we say this is a male concept, it's merely that males, along with females obviously, it's merely that males have passed this on. It's merely that males have systemized and ossified along with females what primarily is based on the narration of Aisha radiallahu anha. So to say that because there are no males who have developed this, therefore it's misogynistic and patriarchal is being a bit disingenuous, to be honest. Also, I think it's important to recognize that oftentimes there are numerous females, hundreds of females graduate from our institutes of higher learning in South Africa, and I think it's a bit just disingenuous to deny that they are scholars in their own right. However, most of them choose to have their lectures, choose to have their teachings amongst females only. The reason for that, Allahu A'lam, you bet it's best that you ask them. So that's it for the semester, inshallah. If there's anything so far during the semester which I've said which is out of line, I ask that you forgive me. If there's anything I've said which is in line, I ask that you make dua for me, that Allah reward me for what I've done. I ask that Allah reward each and every one of you for being here. If I don't see you guys, Ramadan Kareem and Eid Mubarak. Are there any questions before I close up for the semester? No questions. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad, alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
سلام الله على الهادي رسول الله